So a lot of my prep for Camp Nano isn't necessarily writing or outlining or anything like that. A lot of it is honestly trying to get everything done I need to get done before Camp Nano so that I can devote most of my time to Camp Nano. In case you didn't watch, my intro to AuthorTube video, I am also a game master, like, playing Dungeons and Dragons, a potter. So, making mugs on the pottery wheel. I have my own studio, and that's actually where most of my income comes from. And then I'm also a mom. So a lot of times my prep for Camp Nano or any kind of nano projects and writing projects are really to try to finish all the other things I have on the list so that I have time to devote to my writing. So for these last couple of days, I think today is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, and then, we've got Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday is Camp Nano. And so for the last couple of days, I'm going to be finishing a lot of pottery, trying to get it done. I have a Alice in Wonderland collection that I'm launching next week. So I do want to get a lot of that stuff out of the way so I'm not having to worry about it and I can just devote my time to writing. I need to finish my Dungeons and Dragons sessions. I wanted to have a couple of months worth of sessions kind of planned out, or at least have an idea of what I want to do, so that way it won't take me very long to finish them and I won't have to worry about that and I can devote most of my time to Nano. And then also I have just trying to rework the schedule and stuff so that I can figure out when I can devote the time I need to Camp Nano. So really quick update, I have a couple of different projects. On this channel, you're going to see me working on, my Game Master stuff, Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that I'm running. It is very much like writing, and actually is what gave me the confidence to kind of try doing indie author stuff. If you are curious as to why I chose indie author, a little bit more about what I'm doing on this channel, make sure to check out my video that I posted last week about kind of my intro to AuthorTube and why I'm doing it. And that, that'll kind of catch up a little bit. But anyways, I'm gonna have those projects, and then the other big project I'm working on is the book, obviously. I'm gonna be working on doing the first book. I'm currently working on, I guess you could call it the first draft. I found when I write, I usually start over a lot. So I'll write like, I actually did this project for Nano, scrapped most of what I wrote for Nano, rewrote it again. I've been rewriting it for the last couple of months, scrapped it again at like 25,000 words because it just wasn't what I wanted. I kept a few scenes, and now I'm in the process of rewriting it again. And I am currently about 20,000 words. So for Camp Nano, which I'm doing, and I'll be probably doing weekly vlogs if I can manage it, I'm going to just be working on that particular project that I did for Nano. I'm trying really hard to get a first draft that I like and then edit it and stuff like that. What I'm doing now is I'm going to take you through what I'm doing for my game master planning, my sessions. Got to do some writing. I might even show you some pottery clips. Not that this is going to be a pottery channel. I do actually have a pottery channel, but just kind of you have an idea. So here's like one of my mugs. I made like a little dragon, and these usually I make during the summer months and stuff because this red clay makes a huge mess. So, but anyways, yeah, I've got to get my pottery done, close to my collection launch, and then, I'll show you too what I'm doing for my Game Master stuff. I do my own campaigns. I don't actually do like pre-made ones or anything. It's my own world. The characters are characters that my friends decided they wanted to play, characters they made up, and so that's just kind of what we're doing. And we've done a couple of sessions already. I do have a podcast. If you like checking it out, I'll have a link below. Mostly it's my husband's podcast. He's actually a lot better at this than I am, but I like to do sessions here and there to kind of give him a break because he's, what they call the forever DM or the forever game master, and so he's usually the one who's always doing the sessions and doesn't ever really get to play a character. And he just finished one of his huge campaigns that was about 6 years long. We all played characters for it for about 6 years, and we have all of those sessions up on the podcast. And so I'm giving him a little bit of a break. One, so he can play character and not have to worry about being, you know, game master. And two, so that he can kind of plan for his next campaign that he wants to do. Alright, so I have a Notion set up. That's kind of how I keep track of everything I have to do. So I've got my main dashboard, which is mostly pottery related. I've got all of the mugs I'm working on having for the Alice in Wonderland collection and when I'm planning on releasing it. And then I've got things I need to work on. And then I do have here some of my writing stuff, so like scenes I need to have done, scenes I need to write, characters, world building, all that jazz. And then what I'm doing now, where I'm going to be working mostly, is on my Game Master stuff. So this is actually called the Game of Heroes, and yeah, so it's just kind of a fun little campaign that I'm doing. So I have, you know, my player characters, stuff I'm going to be working on with them. I'm working on putting all of my NPCs in here. Obviously it's a little bit of a work. I made a problem with this campaign, and I have way too many NPCs and I'm having a hard time keeping track of them. So I'm hoping that, you know, if I just work on this and get all of my characters in here, I'll be able to kind of keep track of all of them. And the idea with having it on Notion is that I can just have an iPad and be, you know, reading my iPad and checking my notes and stuff while we're doing the session. And so yeah, because usually I do that. And then of course I've got my world building things. I can't show you too much of, you know, all my little tab downs. But, you know, I've got artifacts, I've got cities and towns, I've got the gods here. So as you can see, I did plan out session 6. I planned out session 7. There's some things I need to add to that I'm going to finish today. I did re-listen to the session. Like I said, they're all recorded, so I actually go back to the podcast and re-listen to them to make sure I didn't miss anything, you know, character moments, or for this particular campaign that I'm doing here, the idea, the premise is that there are these games that all of the countries participate in. So it's kind of like the Olympics meets Hunger Games. So it's a little bit more hardcore than, you know, the regular Olympics. But basically it's kind of a way to kind of keep the peace and have all the countries working together, and they each have an ambassador that they choose, or a champion or whatever that they choose to participate in these games. And of course that's my player characters, so they each are from their own country and they're trying to participate and win in these games. And so yeah, that's kind of the premise for this. Like I said, I'm gonna finish, I kind of checked it out because I did have the basic ideas for session 7, but I do need to finish that. I think I'm going to push planning out session 8 to later, because my husband said he wanted to try to start his in June. So if he doesn't start his campaign in June, then I will need to do the session 8, but if not, then we should be fine. So yeah, we're just gonna finish session 7, probably fill in my NPC characters a little bit more, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna be doing. And I did want to mention that if you watch my first video, you know, but I actually do have everything written down too. I'm actually a kinetic learner, and so sometimes having it online just, it's like a disconnect between my brain and what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but because I'm a kinetic learner, a lot of times having something physical where I can write and like get into it and stuff like that kind of helps my brain connect a little bit better. So I do have both a, I guess you'd say, a Game Master Bible and a Notion template for those. So here I have my session notes, and I want to say I have kind of most all of the session 7 done, except for I had kind of an epiphany last night and remembered that I want to say about 80% of the time my player characters don't actually do the combat or anything I have planned for combat. So I actually wanted to add in a little bit if they decide to try to do diplomacy, because I have a feeling they're going to try to do diplomacy with this combat, and I want to make sure that they have that option and they don't feel obligated to have to do combat, because I actually have a lot of players. Some of them like the combat, but I do have a lot of players who enjoy doing the role-playing more. And so I want to give them that option if there is. Of course, there's going to be a combat option, and it's going to involve a ship, so that'll be pretty cool. And yeah, but I can't tell you too much about it because this is for session 7, which is not the next session, but the session after. So we don't want to give too much away in case somebody finds this AuthorTube channel. And I don't want, anything to be... I want it all to be a surprise from a player character. One other thing I forgot to mention is I actually do have to do some editing. Got a video I need to edit, so I will also be doing that. That actually needs to get done soon. I have taken kind of a break from my pottery channel, but there's still a lot of videos up there. Just because like the lights broke in my studio, and so it's like really dark, and I'm having a hard time with the footage turning out right. So I took a little bit of a break from my YouTube channel. But if you're interested in pottery, check it out. It's got a lot of things, lots of fun videos to watch. But anyways, I do need to edit video for this channel. So. I was working through it, and then I realized that none of my countries actually have names yet. And I knew that, but like, I mapped it all out. I know where all the countries are, and I know what they do. I know all their political systems. I just haven't named any of them yet. And so, yeah, I'm gonna have to do that probably next. Because one, the second book takes place in one of these countries, and so I really should figure that out. And two, like, it'll make it easier for me when I'm writing the scenes to actually know what these countries are called. So yeah, I think we'll do that. So actually part of this Notion thing that's really kind of cool is, having the different sections for like my pottery, and the different sections for my book, and then the different sections for my Game Master stuff, is that I can go to them and kind of just keep lists of all this stuff, so I don't have to try to keep it all in here, because let me tell you what, 3 major projects, doing them all the time is a little bit intimidating. and honestly, it doesn't fit in my head. Like, I completely forgot I hadn't given any country names to my world for this particular book project I'm writing for Camp Nano. Hey everybody, I'm just checking in. This is the Thursday before Camp Nano starts. So I honestly had so much pottery to do. I had to actually take a lot of pictures for like my Instagram, and just photos for like the website, listings and things I need to do. And I was planning on doing a sneak peek of the collection that I'm releasing on Friday, and so I just had a ton of pictures to take, and so I didn't really get much recording done today. But ultimately, getting all of the pottery done and the collection kind of ready to go will save me time for that first week of Camp Nano. So what I thought we'd do today is kind of just talk a little bit about my projects that I'm working on. Also, as a side note, my washing machine decided to break, so I did spend quite a bit of time fixing that. But anyways, so I was going to talk a little bit about my projects. So I did mention a lot about the Dungeons and Dragons project, the campaign that I'm running, and kind of mentioned that, kind of took you through my notion on that, you know, like my different pages and stuff, and kind of what I'm planning with that. And that was a little easier, and I don't necessarily have to spend a ton of time explaining it, because, you know, if you're really, really curious about it, you could just go listen to the podcast and kind of see how the characters interact with each other, what the player characters are all called, what countries they came from. You know, I mean, if you really, really want to know all the details, you know, just listen to a couple of the sessions and you'll kind of get there. But I figured, because I am going to be writing, like, my project Song of Roses, mostly for Camp Nano, that's kind of the one I would go into. I do have another couple of stories that I'm working on, but they're more in the editing phase, and they're books that I want to come out with after I'm done with some of these books in the episodic series that I'm writing. So yeah, we'll just call this Project Song of Roses. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that as the name. I might change like what flower it is depending on, you know, how the whole story plays out and stuff. I do kind of want song in the title, just because of what I'm doing with the whole series. And, you know, you'll probably see that as I go on, and kind of like my whole plan behind the standalones that are all part of the same world. I will say that, like, with it being episodic, if you read them in order, you kind of will get little Easter eggs and little hints and stuff from previous books, but it's not at all required. And if you just really can't stand one of the characters I wrote or something like that, I guess I just don't want people to feel like, you know, like they have to read one of the books in the series. And so, you know, I guess that's kind of why I'm doing a bunch of standalones. But I mean, there is a reason why, and I can't go into it a ton. I don't want to give a ton away, especially if people are wanting to read the books when they come out and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm going to try to keep this spoiler-ish free. Like, my writing group and, like, my husband and stuff know pretty much what's happening throughout the entire story and kind of what I'm planning for the series and things like that. But I actually started this whole idea and this whole premise for the book. I was inspired by Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. If you go and read it, there's actually 7 short stories that are all part of this short story. Like, it's broken into 7 different stories that kind of help tell the overall story. And so it kind of gave me that idea of kind of doing like the standalones, but kind of interacting with each other in the same world. That's part of the idea, part of where I got the idea from. And then also, there's a part where the character talks to plants, and specifically flowers, and it's very lyrical, and it's very like, they each have their own little story they're telling and a way that they talk. And so that honestly sparked an idea in my head of creating a character that could speak with plants, and kind of just getting into like what would the flowers say? How would they talk differently? How would they interact? What would, you know, trees, how would they speak differently than like actual flowers would? And it really is kind of fascinating when you get down to it. Like, it sounds like a silly idea, like, oh, she can talk to flowers, like, how awesome of a magical power is that? But I almost wanted to, like, I really love the lyrical nature of it, and so I really wanted to play with that, with like how the flowers talk to her and how she talks to them, and you'll definitely get like stark differences between the flowers, and I'm almost making them like their own races. And so each flower will have a certain way they talk. There'll be ones that are more poetic. There'll be ones that are more straightforward. There'll be ones that, you know, have lived a long time, you know, like, I mean, obviously, like, the trees are going to have a different perspective than just a perennial flower would, you know, like roses. And I mean, even roses might have a little bit more, or get a little bit more from the world than, say, a daisy, you know, that like comes back every year but only stays around for a certain amount of time, you know. And so I did kind of want to play with that, And anyways, I was going to have this main character be able to talk to flowers. And there's an overarching reason why, but she's the only one that she knows of that has any sort of magical power. Basically, in this book, magic is just part of nature. And so nobody has any magic, nobody's capable of using any magic other than what they can get from nature. So they do have like stones and things like that that they can store the magic into. And they cast magic that way. But nobody has like an innate magical ability. And the main character has to deal with people thinking she's crazy or not believing her and things like that because people just don't have magic. That's not the way it works. And then there ends up being there ends up being kind of a murder in it. I say kind of a murder because the character doesn't die right away, but you know, it is a little dark. I'm kind of playing with those fairy tale themes of light and dark and, you know, lessons you learn and the lyrical nature of it. And so that's kind of what I'm doing for this first book. I've kind of set myself out a task because I do really like writing poems and things like that. But my general writing isn't super lyrical. It's definitely something I have to think through. And so as where I could sit there and write a regular book, you know, it could just book out all the words and just, you know, I mean, I usually could do about 500 words in like a 20-25 minute session. Writing this book is a little more challenging. It takes me a little bit longer because of the lyrical nature, and especially if the main character is talking to the flowers. That definitely takes quite a bit more for the dialogue and stuff, and I still haven't quite figured out how I want to format it. So right now I'm just kind of writing conversations, and I formatted it a little bit. I'm not sure if it'll stay that way or not, just because of the lyrical nature of the flowers and how they're talking. You know, it's like I don't necessarily want to just do regular conversation quotes and stuff like that. I do want it to be noticeable that it's the flowers talking to her and she's talking to the flowers, compared to, like, I want there to be a stark difference between her communicating with the flowers and the plants and stuff than her talking to just everybody else, you know? And so, yeah, and so that's kind of what my project is, basically. That's kind of what I'm doing for Camp Nano. That's all I really have for today. I had so much pottery, and I'm gonna have to go back out there and run another kiln load, and so that kind of took most of the priority today. But I figured I'd hop on really quick and just update you guys and tell you what project I'm gonna be working on for Camp Nano. And so I don't really have anything I can do right now besides write. I'm kind of toying with the idea of doing multiple POV. There is definitely one main character that I want most of the story to be told from. It just, you know, sometimes you have collections when you launch them and stuff, they go really smoothly, and then sometimes there's just a whole bunch of problems.